Is it? That's different. Geographical, so do I have something? She's running out of space is why I'm trying to figure out. Slash. Similarity. Yeah, there we go. Similarity. Thank you very much. I love it. I'm up here. People give me words. All right. What was the other thing you said? Transportation. So pull, we're going to have transportation costs. Do we have it? Okay. We're out of space, so we have to go to the next slide. You may have others, but we've captured a bunch. Okay. And not to worry, we can talk about migration 3 times this semester. Antebellum, postbellum, and the current period. All right. Next. Behavioral assumptions. Bottom 3 rows. You got the hardest job. What sort of others do we need up here? What did you guys come up with?
The risk tolerance.
Ah, good. Risk tolerance. If you don't have a high tolerance for risk, are you going to up and move from one country to another where you don't know the language? No, probably not. That's a pretty scary thing. What did you guys? What's one that you guys have? Willingness to so embrace the unknown. How's that? Does that work? Did you guys have one? Did you want to share?
I guess,
Okay. Well, hold on to it because I know what's coming up over on some of these groups. Yes. What's your name? Nick. Perfect information. Good. So information is really important. If you're going to talk about push and pull factors, you sort of have to know, you have to have the information. So whether it's perfect or imperfect, but having some level of information flows. Why do we have the family networks? What's the family network doing? And the social network? What's that about? Information, right? It's about information. I've got a letter, which maybe I can find it on my computer and post it for you to see, that I think it was my grandfather, somebody of that generation who was had moved from, I don't have the specifics. Anyway, somebody that's in the late 1800s who had moved from Iowa to California, I think that's right, and who wrote back this long letter with prices about everything. So how much a hog was and how much cotton was selling for and how much this was selling for and how much that was selling for and how much the land was, and just all that kind of information that today you just go on and Google it, but that was how information flowed, was through letters such as that one. Yep. So implicit in what we were talking about was that there's a desire for an increase in freedom. That's right. That was an implicit assumption that we were making. Did you guys come up with one? No. Okay. This group. What did you guys have? You had some. You had something. No, you had. Yeah.
About, like, we were thinking that everyone when they immigrated was immigrating. That's what I know.
Okay. Well, not necessarily. So people want to be better off. That's an implicit assumption. That's different than risk tolerance. Yeah. So Jason, what did you guys have? People have the ability to leave. That's an important implicit assumption, right? That people actually have the ability to do this. That they can. What did you guys? So that there are. So another piece is the existence of transportation networks. That there is some travel, some means by which you can get from point A to point B. And Nick, you had one. Intergeneration. Yes. Okay. So are the motivations here about increasing the utility of the individual who's migrating, or is it about increasing the utility of the children? So is there some sort of intergenerational process here? So perhaps somebody could make themselves worse off. Is that irrational? In an economic sense, it is. If we're doing an individual economic calculus, somebody could make themselves worse off, but they do that in order to provide their children with better opportunities. And if you're looking at what are wages for adults here and there, and you're not looking at the impact on the next generation, you might not be able to explain the immigration patterns very well if what you have are people who are sacrificing themselves, sacrificing their own opportunities to provide for the next generation. So do we want a personal or an intergenerational motive? Dennis. Can you afford to leave in the first place? So you may have all the desire in the world to go, and all these things may be pushing and pulling, but if you ain't got the change, the money, it's going to change. Good. So legal restrictions. So there's no legal restriction on you leaving, and there's no legal restriction on your arrival. Is that the one you guys are going to do? Because you had legal restrictions. You have another one? Oh, great. But they're all rational decision makers. So there's some sort of rational economic calculus that's going on here that we're doing net benefits versus net cost, or net. We're maximizing net benefit. Good. All right. For the antebellum period, we don't have to worry about rules that restrict migration, at least in terms of the pull into the United States. That's going to be part of our story for the postbellum period. We're going to have laws that start up in the 1850s and then just build from there. For the antebellum period, we're largely looking at an economic process of people leaving because of economic motives, economic reasons, and coming into the United States for economic reasons. So the antebellum period largely fits with the goal of improving economic opportunities, and the push and the pull factors have to do with these economic factors. When we come back and talk about migration again in the next part of the course, we're going to start talking about restrictions. So we'll start talking about that there are people who are facing these push or pull factors that want to leave whatever country it is and come to the United States who can't because of rules and the various institutions that are set up. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, let's look at a picture. This is a distribution of foreign-born residents. So talking about the data, this is taken from the census. So in the census, they ask you where you were born. And so this is not a map of immigration. It's a map of where were people born. This is the 1860 census, so it's looking at the darker the color, the greater the share of the population that was born outside the United States. And so you see the evidence here of that migration, the German migration into Wisconsin and Minnesota, and a little bit here in eastern Iowa. The Irish migration is going here into New England, a little bit into New York, in New England. And of course, California is almost all settled by foreign-born population at the time. Utah Territory is, I'm pretty sure that's the beginnings of Mormons in Utah, right? 1850 something? Yeah. Okay. All right. Labor. I said we had a lot to do, and I said I had to go fast, and I knew I couldn't do it, but there you go. So we talked about population because population is what gives us an increase in the labor force, and now we want to turn and talk briefly about labor issues, and then we'll have to talk about poor relief on Tuesday, which is okay. That's okay. Yeah. All right. Distribution of the population, 1810, 1840, 1860. This is taken from a chart in your textbook, and you can see here, first column shows you agriculture. So we are overwhelmingly an agricultural nation. 1860, over 50% of the labor force is still in agriculture. There's an increase in manufacturing. So with the industrialization process that I mentioned the other day, the rise of factories, we get a larger share of the labor force is manufacturing. By 1860, about 14% of the labor force is in manufacturing. The immigration is disproportionately these laborers who are working in manufacturing. So particularly the Irish immigration is disproportionately laborers. They're not coming in as skilled craftspeople. They're coming in as laborers who are going to work in manufacturing. That's going to become relevant in just a couple minutes. Let's see, I just said that. This is a chart we've seen before, so we saw this the other day. It shows where the cotton spindles are located, so big increase in manufacturing from 1810 to 1840, focused here in the Northeast, particularly, which is where the Irish immigrants are largely settling. And one of the things they find is that we get over that period a move away from women to immigrants as the primary labor force in these factories. The organization of the factories, the Rhode Island system, I don't really need to talk about that. It's described in the textbook briefly. It's a system where the whole family is brought in. They're provided with housing. Don't think it's not great housing. Provided with some sort of tenement housing, and the whole family is employed in the mill. So this is showing the use of children as workers as well as, in the next picture, adults and women. What do I want to say? Travelog. Oh, yeah, Travelog. When you go to New York City, go down, it's below 14th Street. I forget where it is. And it's a tenement museum. It's a fabulous thing to do. So in New York City, the tenement museum, they are some tenements that have been restored to show you what life was like in the tenements. Fabulous docents, really good docents. People who are getting masters in museum history, who are the docents for this place. So put it on the list next time you go to New York City. And then go uptown, docent shows. Okay. What else do I want to say about labor? Long hours. Standard was a 12-hour day, 6-day a week. Sweatshops where the work was 14 to 16 hours a day were not uncommon. If you were working in iron making, because that's where they're using the big heavy blast furnaces, you're working 7 days a week because they're going to keep the blast furnaces going. It's too expensive to cool them down. The wages in manufacturing, we can look at wages in manufacturing and think about wages in manufacturing by using our standard labor market models. So if you printed out the slides, I rejiggered them a little bit because I wanted to draw the graphs 3 times. So just draw this along the side. Wages on the vertical, quantity of labor on the horizontal, standard downward sloping demand for labor, D of L. The demand for labor is the business's desire to hire workers. The demand for labor reflects the marginal revenue product. MRP is marginal revenue product, the additional revenue from hiring one additional worker. In a perfectly competitive market, it's equal to the price of the output, so I'll use a little x to stand for the output, times the marginal physical product of the worker. So the marginal revenue product is what's the additional revenue that the firm gains from hiring one additional worker. So marginal, additional, revenue, money, product. The additional revenue gained from hiring one additional worker, and the more workers you hire given a fixed amount of capital, the less output they will produce, law of diminishing returns, the lower the wage that you'll be willing to pay, the firm will be willing to pay for each additional worker. The supply of labor, that took a funny shape. Supply of labor, sometimes we draw supply of labor as a backward bending curve. I don't care about that part. We're not in the backward bending part for anything that we're talking about. The supply of labor reflects workers' desires and it reflects the labor-leisure trade-off. That's going to be influenced by the opportunity costs. So, for instance, when we talked about women working in the New England factories, their supply of labor to New England factories is influenced by the opportunity cost, which is what they're not doing, which is not working on the farm. Not a terribly high opportunity cost for the women in New England, much higher opportunity cost for the women in the Mid-Atlantic states. That's going to give us an equilibrium point, equilibrium wage, W1, equilibrium quantity of labor, Q1, where the supply and the demand equal. We've got some implicit assumptions here. We're assuming that individuals are maximizing utility, that utility increases with leisure, decreases with labor, but on the other hand, labor allows for increased income, which allows for increased consumption, so that's where you get the backward bending part, which we're not going to do. We're assuming that businesses are about maximizing profit, revenue minus costs, and we're assuming homogeneous workers. So remember, when we do perfect competition, we're assuming homogeneous output, which means that one worker is just as good as another. That's the assumption of homogeneity of the workers is the reason why using this model of labor markets does not work for understanding the aggregate economy. So this is not good for understanding unemployment on overall because we don't have homogeneity of workers. You can't take me out and plop in somebody who's playing music at the base of the escalator in the BART station and get the same output. Just come up with a random example. Some of them are pretty, you can't put me down there and get the same level of music either. So, right, workers are not homogeneous if you do the whole aggregate economy. But if we're looking at wages of laborers in some particular industry, this is a fine model for understanding the determinants of wages of laborers in industry because that's a pretty homogeneous set. Okay. All right, what do we get? Ratio of female to male wages. Ratio of female to male wages, not pretty. 1820, women are making 30% of what men are making. 1850, it's risen to 50%. 1890, it's risen to 55%. The t-shirt in my closet that I bought when I was in high school, it was at 63%. I think it's now up at 76%. We could use the labor market model to analyze this. What we would want to take into account is the difference both in demand and in supply. So the demand for labor, remember, reflects the marginal product of labor. The marginal product of labor, that is how much output a worker can produce per, say, hour, is influenced by how much machinery they're working with. The more machinery you work with, the more you can produce. And also is influenced by what tasks they are assigned. And so if we were to try to draw, say, one picture, quantity of labor on the horizontal, wages on the vertical, we'd want to have the demand for male labor far to the right of the demand for female labor. Because there's going to be, in this period, vast differences in the marginal product of the workers. The men are working with the machines that increase productivity much more than the women are. The women are given tasks that have relatively low marginal product. The other piece, of course, is the supply of labor. And the supply of labor, perhaps there is the same supply of labor. Maybe we want one supply of labor curve. So supply for men and supply for women, but perhaps not. Remember that the reservation wage is a measure of what's the lowest wage you're willing to accept, and that's a reflection of your opportunity cost. The reservation wage for women workers was much lower than the reservation wage for many male workers. And so for women workers, this supply curve extends down much further. Let me do it in 2 colors. Let's do men in blue. So for men, their reservation wage might be much higher because they have this alternative opportunity of going and working on the farm. And so the supply curve for men might end, might end at a much higher level. And so again, you get interaction, higher wages for men than there are for women. Other data to talk about. Have a great weekend. See you on Tuesday. Go Bears.